What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be going over a Team Ruck match that I attended over this past weekend, and it was hosted by Whiskey Hotel and held at the Fort Harmar Rifle Club in Marietta, Ohio. I had a really cool intro that I planned for this video. Got some really cool footage utilizing my drone that I recently picked up. However, all of the footage got corrupted and I couldn't save anything from the drone's SD card. So, sucks, but it is what it is. We adapt and overcome. So, as far as the Team Ruck Match goes, the Ruck Match itself was designed for you to work as a two-man team element, and it's built to challenge and develop skills for all shooters. It doesn't matter whether you're a beginner or advanced. There's a little bit of everything for everybody there. It tests your physical fitness, your map reading abilities. It's basic, but it does your weapons manipulations, your fundamentals as a shooter, all the way up to being advanced. And communications, I mean, it tested everything. And it did it all under stress. And there's no better method for gauging whether you are capable or ready for something than when you're doing it under stress on a clock. And this encompassed all of that, and I really enjoyed this competition. So as far as the match structure and rules go, let's cover that real quick. Let me get my notes right here. So there were 3 timed rucks and 6 shooting stages. Each one of the rucks had a max time of 15 minutes, or rather that was the fastest that you can complete those rucks in were 15 minutes, and that would accumulate, or you would be given a max of 50 points. If you went over that 15 minutes, starting at 15:01, and every 30 seconds after that, you would be deducted 5 points, and that's how you would get your score for those rucks. Altogether, those rucks, I believe, if I remember correctly, covered 3 or 3.5 miles. I think it was 3 miles. But there were shooting stages that were off from the main range at other locations, and you would have to make those rucks to those locations before completing those stages, and then rucking back to the main rally point to be giving your next objective or your next mission. So you were probably doing more than 3 miles of total rucking. However, those were the 3 rucks that you have to do, and then there were again those 6 shooting stages. The way those were scored were you had a combination of cardboard IPSC targets and steel targets. If there were cardboard IPSC targets, shots landing within the 0 zone would be 3 points, within the 1 zone would be 2 points, and within the 3 zone would be 1 point. All hits on steel targets scored a max of 3 points. All shots had to have been made behind cover unless it was otherwise stated for a particular stage. If you took any shots outside of cover, you would be deducted 3 points for each infraction. If there was no cover within 3 paces of taking contact, then you would drop to the prone, and that would be used as cover. All mag changes had to be conducted behind cover. If you did any mag changes on the move or outside of cover, you would be deducted 3 points for each infraction. Obviously, unless the RSO had stated otherwise for that particular shooting stage. All of that would combine for your final score, and that's how you would rank. You could use additional aids. So you could bring things like bipods, laser rangefinders, tripods, etc. And all that had to be carried with you throughout the entirety of the match. So what you came in with is what you left with. If you left any of that on a particular stage, you would be deducted 10 points for each infraction. If you were caught trying to prep gear for a particular stage beforehand, basically gaming a particular stage to give you a competitive edge, you would also be deducted 10 points for that. As far as rifle and gear requirements go, all rifles had to be a semi-automatic platform, you know, AR, AK, what have you. Had to have a weapon mounted light, even if it was just a flashlight taped to it, to the handguard, you had to have it, and you had to have a sling. All shooters had to carry a water source with a minimum capacity of 2 quarts. You had to carry 5 30-round magazines, have the ability to carry those 30-round magazines, an IFAK, and you had to have a pack with a minimum weight of 25 pounds. And that pack would be weighed periodically throughout the competition to make sure that you're adhering to that minimum standard. Any type of consumable, ammo, water, food did not count towards your weight, because obviously those things are going to be consumed throughout the match. So you would not be able to count that, because obviously your weight's going to be different by the end of the competition. And finally, any type of disqualifications, loss of a weapon, negligent discharges, or flagging anyone would result in immediate disqualification. I can report, thankfully, that none of that occurred. Okay, so we start out by arriving at the main range at 7:30, me and my shooting partner Chris, and then at 8:30 on the dot we kicked off with our first stage, and that stage was the Mad Dash. So this stage was shot with multiple teams because there was multiple lanes of fire that were available. I believe there was 10 lanes of fire. You had barrels set up numbered 1 through 10, and each firing lane had 2 barrels because you're operating as a team. Downrange at 300 yards, you had 10 sets of targets. Each set had a target A, B, and C. And there was 3 shooting iterations. Each iteration would be a specific target. The loadout for this one in particular called for 4 mags with 5 rounds each, and 1 mag with 10 rounds, for a total of 5 mags with 30 rounds. There were 3 iterations, as I stated before. Each of them had a part time of 60 seconds. Your packs did not have to be on you, so you were able to downgrade once you got to this shooting stage. They would have you take your packs off. And then you would line up on your barrel and then walk 50 yards laterally to your right across the range. And on the command or on the buzzer, you would sprint 50 yards to your barrel. So for us, we were at barrel 2. And we would have to engage target A for barrel 2. And it would be 5 rounds, reload, 5 rounds, shooting off of the barrel as a barricade. Once that was completed, you would drop the mag, show clear. They would give you about 60 seconds to consolidate, reorganize, and prep, not really prep, but get ready for the next shooting stage. And on the mark or the buzzer, depending on whether they use, I think they use both throughout the matches, you would sprint 50 yards towards the target to a set of cones marked out in the field. Once there, you would drop to a knee or a seated position, load up, 5 rounds, reload, 5 rounds. Again, that 60-second period was given to you to consolidate, reorganize, get ready for the next stage or the next iteration. Then on the mark, you would sprint another 50 yards forward, and you would take that 10-round mag, load up, and standing engage target C with 10 rounds. So the first iteration engaged target A, second iteration target B, third iteration target C. Once that was completed, we all cleared the weapons, showed clear, walked down range, collected the targets, marked everything off as far as who it belonged to, which team. And then we would give those targets to another team for them to mark off and grade. And once we had our total score and it was given back to us, we'd give that score to the RSO for that particular stage, and they would keep it in the official scorebook. From there, we made our way over to the rally point, and they gave us our first mission, and that was a shakers and movers drill. And that was in another range that was down the road. So we made the short ruck out to that other range. The loadout for this was 3 mags with 8 rounds, totaling 24 rounds. There wasn't really a part time, however, because this had moving targets and pop-ups, you had 2 seconds per target to engage. There was 3 iterations for this. They were basically positional changes, so you would shoot standing, then kneeling, then prone. Both shooters had to engage the same target 2 rounds in 2 seconds before moving to the next target. There was no heads up for any of the targets aside from the start of the iteration. So they gave us a standby and basically waiting for the pop-ups to come up or the mover to move. The way it went is you had 2 pop-ups and 1 mover. It was all within like 50, 40 yards, somewhere around there. It would be you and your shooting partner, and Chris was over on my right-hand side about 20 yards away at the other barrel. And you would have 1 pop-up show itself, engage 2 targets from both of us. It would drop down. Then the mover would begin to move across from a set of barrel to another set of barrels. You had to wait for it to clear the barrels before engaging. Then the other pop-up would show itself, engage that, and then finally the mover would go back the opposite direction, and you'd have to engage that mover again. That would be 1 iteration, and then you would do your positional change and then repeat. Again, there was no real part time except for the amount of time that the target showed itself. We did have to have our packs worn for this stage. Once we were done, we made the short ruck back to the rally point, and that's when they gave us our first ruck. And this one was the red ruck. So at the beginning, I forgot to touch on this. At the beginning, when we went to the registration table and checked in, we were given a packet. And in that packet, the cover page was a map of the area with highlighted routes. You had 3 highlighted routes, red, yellow, and blue, and those signified each one of the rucks. And then inside the packet was, page by page, a breakdown of each one of the stages, how they were supposed to be shot, the loadout, whole 9 yards, and how they were scored. It would tell you your par times, whole 9 yards. So, jumping forward again to this red ruck, this one had an objective, and the objective was you had to make your way to a rally point, or rather a checkpoint, and there would be an ammo can that you would have to unlock, take the contents out, and then make your way back to an observation point, observe a target, get the information, return those items to the ammo can, lock it, and then make your way back to the rally point. So that is what we did. We made the ruck. We found the ammo can, removed the items. The items were 1 monocular spotting scope, handheld one, smaller one, and a range card with data on it. Make your way to the observation point, and using the data and the monocular, you would find a target that you're looking for, which was a high value target. It was a pitcher on a stand, basically in the tree line, or just in front of the tree line. You would have to take a look at that, get as much information off of that picture as possible, details, return those items to the box, lock it, and then make your way back to the registration table or to the rally point. Once at the rally point, you had to identify the target. Now there was 8 different pictures on the table, and the tricky part about this is that, sticking with the whole mission deal, the picture was taken approximately 4 seconds after we identified, so there was a positional change. You had a different profile, so you had to pay very close attention to the details of the initial picture so that you can discern who was the target. Once that was done, we went over to the Hill People race. There, we were able to downgrade our packs, so it was just our rifle and whatever initial gear was on our body. The par time for this was 300 seconds, and the loadout was as many mags as you can carry loaded with 7 rounds apiece. On the stage, you had 2 wooden cable reels, one very large and one small, and then you had a barrel. There was 2 stages set up identically, side by side, and each one of these stages had marks spray painted on them, one in white and the other stage was in orange, and those signified where you can shoot from, all the different positions that you can shoot from. Every time that you made your way to the barricades to shoot from, you had to shoot from a different position than you did last time. If your partner was stepping up to relieve you to shoot, he or she, but I don't think there was any women there that were shooting, but in this case, Chris would have to shoot from a different position that I shot from. So I couldn't repeat positions, and my teammate couldn't repeat the position that I had just shot from. And the way this kicked off was there was a tire that you had to drag. So the first shooter would step up, drag the tire about 10 yards down laterally across the range around a barrel, come back to where the tire was first at, and then you would step up to the barricade, load, and begin engaging targets. And there were steel targets from 100 yards out to 500 yards. They ranged in size, and you had to make a single hit on each target before you can move to the next one. So you start at 100 yards, impact, move to 200 yards. If you miss, you repeat until you make a hit, and then you move to the next target. You had 7 rounds. That was your initial iteration. Once the 7 rounds were shot up, you would step off, clear and step off. Your shooting partner would step up and pick up where you left off. So if I had left off at the 400 yard, I didn't make my last hit. I shot 2 or 3 rounds, didn't hit. Chris would pick up on target for 400, while I went back and redid the tire drag. There was 2 RSOs, one for each shooting lane. They would act as your spotters, and I believe they had hit markers on the steel targets that would illuminate, so that it would make it easy for the spotters to call a hit or not. And then that they would tally up the score and then put it down on the official score sheet. So, forgot that. Jump back to the Yellow Ruck. Like the first one, the Yellow Ruck did have an objective, and in this case, the Yellow Ruck being the longest distance that we had to walk or ruck, we had to get to a checkpoint. There, at the checkpoint, there was some information that was left behind that we had to gather, basically take a picture of it, and then we had to come back to the rally point and confirm that information so they know we made the ruck as we should have. Once we were done with that, we went back to the rally point, and there they sent us on our next mission or to the next stage, and that was the blind leading the blind stage. This one was a really fun stage. Now this one was up a steep hill. There was a rally, like a staging area where you would wait. Once the RSOs will let you know that you were next up, you would walk about halfway up that hill. They'd give you your instructions for the stage, and then you would make your way to the area you had to go to. So for this one, the part time was 300 seconds. Your pack had to be with you for this one. The loadout was one mag with 24 rounds. And there were 5 camouflage steel targets hidden in the tree line and above inside the woods there. Actually, it was 4. The 5th one was somewhere else, but I'll touch on that in a second. At the buzzer or at the RSO's mark, we would make our way up to a sniper's hide, get inside the hide, set ourselves up, and we, as a shooter element, had to find the targets while the RSO was spotting for us. Find a target, confirm that that was the target with the RSO. Once he gave us the confirmation, we each would have to engage that target with 3 rounds. Now, those targets were probably between, I would say, 250 and 300 yards out. And you were pretty much on like this little ridge line with a little bit of a clearing, but there's quite a bit of brush and like logs and stuff in the front of the sniper hide. You would engage, and once you were done engaging the target, you would glass for the next one and start looking for the next target, confirm it, so on and so forth. You had 300 seconds to find all of these targets. Going back to what I was saying, that there was one little issue. The closest target was in the field underneath a platform. Problem with this target was, unless you were standing up, you couldn't see that target. So if you were down, like there was camo netting with little holes cut out so that you can engage targets through it and mask your position. But unless you were standing up, you could not see that target. Not a big deal. I don't know if anybody saw that target, but yeah, that one was really close. And again, unless you were standing up to clear all the brush and whatnot that was in front of you, you couldn't see that target. So when we were done with that, we went back to the rally point, and they gave us our next objective or mission, and this one was the hot retreat stage. So this one was another short ruck that we had to make to another range. Once we were there, we were given our loadout, which was 1 mag with 9 rounds and as many full mags as you wanted to carry. This was a 2-part stage, and the only part time was for the second half of the stage, which was 90 seconds. So the first stage was from a vehicle. Me and Chris entered on the passenger side, and we would have one person in the front, one person in the back, or both on the passenger side, and we were towed inside a vehicle, mimicking having a driver driving. There were 3 targets along a tree line, and they were hidden behind some type of a barricade. There was cardboard up, but mimicking that they were hiding their position. And you had to load up with the 9-round mag, and as you were going down, you had to engage each target 3 times from the window. We engaged those 3 rounds each. Once we came to a stop, the RSO got out, and once he was in position, would give us the go-ahead, or a buzzer if they were using a buzzer. For us, he said go. From there, we would exit the vehicle and sprint to a gravel mound, in which we would load up and engage targets downrange, which are, I believe, about 100 yards, maybe a little shy of 100 yards. But there was a Texas Star, and then there was a spinner. Once we got to the mound, the goal was you had 90 seconds to engage the Texas Star and the spinner, and to complete the stage, you had to get the spinner to create 1 revolution. Once we were done with this, they tallied up all of the points, and then we made our way back to the rally point for our final 2, I believe, deals. So once we were back to the rally point, they gave us our final ruck, which was the blue ruck. Blue ruck was just like the yellow ruck. It wasn't as long. However, there was the objective of acquiring information and then bringing it back to the rally point so that you could confirm with them, and they can get your time down. Once that was done, we made another short ruck out to another range that was fairly close, and this was the last stage of the competition, and that was the log roper. So the way this went was, you had obviously having to ruck out there. We had our packs, but we were able to downgrade our packs. There was 3 shooting iterations, and there was 2 teams. So there was two shooting positions set up for each team. You had a vertical barricade, and then you had a horizontal barricade, and the same thing for the other teammate or the other team if there was another team that was competing against you. And on those barricades, you had different marks. You had 1 through 5 and 1 through 5, and down range at about 100 yards, you had targets that were either numbered or lettered. For us, we had the numbered targets 1 through 5. And the way it worked was you would have a 60-second part time of log PT. Once you were done with the PT, they would tell you get ready, and then on the mark would start the part time of 30 seconds. The way the shooting went was, for iteration 1, you would step up to your respective barricade, whichever one you and your teammate decided on that they were going to take, and we would engage from positions 1 and 2, and you would engage from position 1, 5 rounds into target 5, reload, and then another 5 rounds from position 2. Once that was done, you go back to another 60 seconds of log PT, and then do this again on the mark. You would go down to your barricade and shoot from positions 3 and 4, 5 rounds into target 4, reload, transition to position 4, 5 rounds into target 4. And then for the last iteration, you would do another 60 seconds of PT, and then they would disable one of your arms using basically a strap and cinch it down. And in this case, one person had to shoot left-handed, person had to shoot right-handed. At the mark, you would make your way to your rifle, load up one-handed, get down into the prone, and one-handed charge your rifle, engage target 3 with 5 rounds. Once this was done, you would make your way down to the targets. We would pull the targets, tally them up, and then those scores were recorded. From there, we made the short ruck back to the main range. At that point, the majority of people were done competing, and they were under the overhang from the concrete slabs there, and they were conducting, or at least the James was conducting the raffle. So there was a raffle that you could pay. It was $20 a ticket, and they were raffling all types of stuff. They had a couple of Eberly stock bags. They had some custom-made knives made. They had MBT triggers. So they went from really expensive stuff that you can get all the way down to, PMags. So they did that. Once that raffle was done and all the items were raffled off, they did a secondary raffle strictly for the RSOs. Once that was done, they went into reading off all of the rankings. So there was 2 rankings. There was all the teams that were competing, the 18 teams that competed, and then there was the RSO match that was going on simultaneously, and they read them off. Thankfully, we were able to get into the top 3. We took 3rd place. I'm going to credit Chris with this because my weakest point was the rucks, and mainly because of me being severely overweight, which, I don't know if most people will even admit that. I'm comfortable enough to know and self-aware to say, hey, I am severely overweight, and I knew that was going to be an issue. And it's part of the reason why I even did this competition. I'll explain in a second. But the last 2 rucks, I was hurting. My knees were really hurting. My lower back was killing me. My hips were killing me. I was freaking sucking down Advils like they were candy. And if it wasn't for him pushing me to maintain that pace, we probably would have never made it in the top three. So I thank him big time for that. Overall, I thought this was a fantastic experience. Admittedly, I did this because I wanted to see if I was still an asset or to see how much of a liability I am to my family should any type of event or shit hit the fan scenario did happen. You don't get to choose the time when these things happen. All you can do is just prep and be ready in case it ever does happen. In this case, I'm clearly not doing what I need to do because I'm overweight. I know I have a lot of issues medically, and I haven't really been addressing all those. You know, for instance, my knees are shot. My left knee, I was supposed to have a knee replacement done last month. That has had to be postponed. So there's things that in my mind I'm always wondering, can I take care of my family if anything like this ever happened? And that is one of the biggest reasons why I did this competition, because I wanted to see what my deficiency was, or my deficiencies, whether it be, weight, physical fitness, my gear, whole 9 yards. But at the end of the day, we had an absolute blast. I do these things primarily because I enjoy it. This is my way of decompressing, getting away from the everyday struggles of life, and just having a good time. And that's what we did. There was so many great people. Everybody was in good spirits. Everybody was pushing each other, giving each other, like, hey, keep it up, whole 9 yards. And, I can't thank the cadre enough for putting on such an awesome event, and I'd like to see more people there in the future, because I think that this is something that people can take a lot away from. And the one thing that I didn't touch on, and I should have earlier, and that's my fault, is that what they do is, if you don't want to compete, you can do what's called their skill builder. And their skill builder basically is for you to learn and have a good time. And rather than being another clock, you do all the stages, but you do it with the aid of the RSO's coaching. So they give you some information, how to do things better, help you with your shooting, positional stuff, the whole 9 yards, and you get to learn from it. But you get to still have fun doing all the things everybody else is doing. You're just not in the competition. So, with all that being said, great time, great opportunity, great experience. I cannot wait to go back. If you guys are interested in doing this stuff, definitely look up Whiskey Hotel. I'll post the link so you can check out the website. And any questions, leave them down below in the comment section. I will answer them for you. The only thing I ask of you is that you can, if you don't mind, liking and or subscribing. I am trying to grow this channel. That way I can be afforded to do other stuff. So, to wrap this all up, thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.